Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, seen each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and a whole bunch of other places as well. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm in my Zoom studio in Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a whole bunch of people, and you'll hear why in just a second, but they're mostly involved with SART, Southern Appalachian Repertory Theater. And we're going to talk about just a fantastic production they're in the middle of, Hunchback of Notre Dame. And first of all, let me introduce two of the stars of the show, and they are Richie, Barrella. Is that correct? You can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world, Richie, so you can wave to everybody. Okay,
Hello.
great. And it's also Ray Castillo, and Ray, you can wave to everybody as well. Okay, great. And we have two other people who are part of this production, kind of an interesting way they're part of the production, and they are, so I have it right, it's Lora, Nielsen, and Kat, what's your last name, please? I can't hear you. You have to say it.
Oviatt. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Thanks.
Okay. Oviatt. That's Oviatt. Oviatt.
Okay. And Kat and Laura are kind of interesting parts of the production in that they are two of the folks doing signing for the production. And I guess let me start off maybe with Richie. And you're one of the stars of the production. I guess, what would you say? You're one of the two Hunchbacks of Notre Dame?
So the way that we have been talking about it is that Ray is Quasimodo
Right.
and I am Quasimodo's voice.
Okay. Now, I'm curious. I've never seen the show before. Do other people do it the same way as you folks are doing it?
There's been a few professional theaters that have done this a similar way. Sacramento Music Circus and Fifth Avenue Theater have both done it, and those are two very like well-known equity regional houses. In terms of places like Southern Appalachian Repertory Theater that are on the smaller end, represent a smaller community, as far as I know, we are the one of the first to do this in this way.
So if you didn't do it this way with the two interpreters and with the hunchback and also with the voice, how would it be done then? Would the hunchback be doing the voice, or is that how it would be done?
So normally, when it was originally produced by La Jolla and at Paper Mill, they had one person playing the Hunchback, and he would sort of go back and forth between when he was talking to just the gargoyles or was singing. He would be like fully vocalizing and fully saying his words like in the correct order and whatnot. Whereas whenever he was speaking to another character in the show, they would switch and his sentences would be a little broken. He'd have a little bit of like a vocal effect and things like that. But I know that when our director, Ethan Henry, had talked about doing this show, and when this show came up, this was the only way that he felt the show could and should be done. He felt like this was the most accurate representation because in the Victor Hugo novel, Quasimodo is deaf. So he felt like the best way to do this show and the best way to do the show properly and do it justice would be in this way with a deaf actor playing Quasimodo and another actor being his voice for the lines in the songs.
Okay, it was just brilliant. It's just a kudos to you, but also kudos to Ray as well. And the thing that's incredible, Ray, about your performance is I understand this was the very first time you had ever acted before? Ray, had you? Yeah.
Yes, this was my first act performance.
Well,
I'm not a professional actor. I am not a professional by any means.
Well, you could have fooled me, by the way. You were so good. Let me ask you, how did they get you involved in this?
Thank you. Well, I guess how I got involved, it sort of started through my cousin. My cousin works for that company for many years, and they asked me to come and just give them a hand, maybe teach them a few signs to help with a few lines. And then Richie and someone else actually both asked me about performing, and I went, okay. I think that it was sort of a minor undertaking. It wasn't a big deal. Maybe a couple of lines here and there, a few signs. And then I saw the contact from Richie, and I was like, oh no, man, I'm like a main character. All right, well, you know, I don't know if I could use a quote, but if I dare to try, I guess I had to just give it a try. I would never know if I didn't try. So what it would be like for a deaf person. So.
Well, you not only tried, you certainly succeeded. And what's so cool about it, Ray, I thought, is the fact that I guess I saw the show at the end of the first week, and by then it seemed you had everybody also signing as well. Talk a little bit about that process, how you got all the other people on stage doing a lot of signing also.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, of course, we studied the lines, and some of them were fairly brief. That means that they could, people could sign things. I would never ask people to sign things that were like 2-3 sentences long. That's a lot of things to remember. And I think we worked on the lines for 3 days before the performance. Those people would work on them for 3 days. And so during that time, we would, spend the time changing the English to ASL just to sort of make sure that everything was, a combination. And, there were some struggles because we had to do some recording, of course, of each cast member. I had to do some lip reading. Remember, looking at the English, I wanted to have the signs doing English, but I couldn't do. I wanted to keep it as close to the English as possible. So I had to see what they were saying and then adjust the sign accordingly. So I worked on that for 3 days to memorize all of those lines. Okay,
and let's talk a little bit with Lora and Kat, how they got involved in the process. I was fortunate, I saw it on a Sunday, and I guess it was the one day, Kat, you weren't there. But talk about, Lora, first of all, the role of you two folks. How did you come into the play?
So this is Lora speaking. I've always wanted to be a performance interpreter. I have deaf family members. I grew up on a stage. I've been working with interpreters to provide access with them for my parents my whole life. And so after I graduated, Ray actually helped quite a bit during my first interpreting program, volunteering and being a member of the deaf community, and now his teaching at Blue Ridge Community College, where I graduated from. So we kind of know each other through that, and my name was thrown into the pot pretty early because I'm very comfortable as a performance interpreter. I love doing it. It means a lot to me to branch the two worlds together. And Kat was added on, but I'm so glad she was the one that ended up being the team member for me. We've had a great time together, and we get to be 14 different people every day. And it's quite an experience. And the translation of the lines, as Ray was talking, was quite a bit of work and still happens as we go along doing the shows. We're fixing our mistakes constantly. But it has been a wonderful journey to be a part of. Not sure if Kat wants to add any extra things.
Yeah, it's been really amazing, and I feel really lucky to be teamed with Lora on this because bachelor's degree in performance interpreting, which is so unusual, and I don't think that's not something that's very common in our field. So it's a really fortunate happenstance that she just happens to be local and involved and already knew Ray, and so it was really, really great that she got to be a part of this, because I know not only is this something that she has a degree in, but it's also her passion. Inclusivity in theater is something that's really, really important for Lora. And I'm just happy to be tagging along. I have, in terms of credentials, we have Lora and I have slightly different credentials. So we have a great, scope of experience and of qualifications that we kind of bring in together. And her experience on the stage and her performance interpreting degree and my experience, growing up, my parents are both interpreters, both sign language interpreters. My dad was also a pastor to the deaf for many years. So there's a lot of religious themes in Hunchback that I feel really excited that I get to kind of bring in some of my experience with church interpreting. So between the two of us, I think we make a pretty good team. And I'm crossing my fingers hoping that Ray agrees. Ray, are we good?
Okay. Kat, talk a little bit. Can you jump a little closer to the mic if you can? Okay,
Sure.
Ray agrees. That's great. Kat, let me ask you too, though, for the benefit of people who haven't seen it yet, explain what happened. So you see on stage Richie and Ray acting and all the other performers. Explain, which is kind of cool to watch, what you and Laura are doing at the same time.
Sure, yeah. So while Ray is performing on stage, all of his lines are signed. 100% of his lines are signed, but not everybody else has all of their lines signed. So there's another 13 or 14, I don't know the exact number, cast members who have a few words here and there that they might have a couple of signs, but for the most part, they're all spoken. So Lora and I help fill in the gap between, what Ray's signing and then all the access for all of the other cast members. So not only during the performances, we're providing a full interpretation in ASL, also backstage and for all the rehearsals and everything, we were interpreting for everyone so that they could access what Ray had to say, and then interpreting for Ray also so that he could access what everybody else had to say. So it's been we're both in kind of front of house and back of house in terms of the interpretation we've provided, and it's been a lot of fun, big challenge.
And when you're interpreting, or Laura, I'll ask you this question. So when I saw you on Sunday, you were just down kind of in the first row there. Ordinarily, where are you when the two of you are both there? Where are you interpreting?
So we will be on house right, so stage left. There's actually a small platform that is generally a step, but it just gives us enough elevation for us to be seen about waist height or above the heads of the audience members. The theater there has an interesting floor. It's slanted because it used to be a church. So we have to make sure that we are visible above the heads of the audience members as well. So we will be right there, right where, just to be honest, where most of the most touching scenes are. We're right underneath that light, and we settle and take in that moment with everybody. So we're very much in eyesight of some of the most emotional moments of the show, which we're careful of because we're not meant to be the limelight, we're meant to be the access, but we have learned the emotion that people have put into delivering their lines and their character, and have very much adopted that into our interpretations. The little dances that certain characters do, I can pull into some of the movements when I'm interpreting those lines. And it's really been very awesome to be able to almost double some of the blocking that they've done, and it's been a great experience.
And what's fun to watch you, Laura, or Kat, is sometimes you're almost taken away from the actors. No offense to Richie or Ray, but they're so good, they're so animated that it's hard to take your eyes away from what you're doing versus what Richie and Ray are doing.
Yeah, if I could just interject,
Sure.
Ray is saying. Sure. Just wanted to add something. ASL is really a very visual language. And so ASL has 5 parameters that are required to involved in the language. And so many of those parameters are sort of involved in facial expressions. And so if it sort of feels that the expressions are not there, then you're not really expressing the language accurately. And so the interpreters really need to work. They need to listen to what people are saying. Is it a sad scene? Is there some sort of grief involved? And they have to play with that and incorporate that into the language so that the audience will understand. So, people do come again to see this performance. The first time they watch the actors, and then they come back for the second time to actually watch the interpreters. So they're not technically watching both. It's really hard to do the same. You have to kind of pick one or the other. So surely you're interested in going to see the performance, but if you're interested in to watch the interpreters, sort of two different things. So you kind of get the sense of how the interpreters work with the performers. The emotions, the feelings, the expressions are all involved in the process.
Is it tough doing interpreting for singing versus speaking, or is it the same process?
It's a different process. I think a lot of singing is emotion. It evokes emotion and it evokes feelings. And so if you're just interpreting word for word for word, what each word of the song, you're missing some nuance there. So I think interpreting music is a different process of developing, kind of encapsulating what the song means and the emotions that it's trying to evoke, and then developing an interpretation and a translation that kind of evoke a similar status, but without the ability to hear the lows that really kind of bring you down low and the highs that make you feel happy. So it's kind of encapsulating, getting an idea of what the song feels like and what it's supposed to evoke, and then bringing that out into the interpretation. And I don't know if we're any good at it, but we sure have had a lot of fun working on it.
Richie, is this the first time you've ever worked with sign language or a sign language performance like this?
Yes, it is. This is the first time I've ever done a show like this. I've actually done Hunchback before, but I was in the choir, so I was sort of off to the side. But the production that I did was done the Paper Mill Playhouse La Jolla way, where there was one person playing Quasimodo and he did everything. And I've been in shows. I've been acting since I was 5. Not 5. That's wrong. 8. But it's I've never been able to do something like this, and this is probably one of the more rewarding and more exciting ways to do it, especially because I have a scene partner the whole show. It's never just me on that stage. It is myself and Ray, and we both are making this character, making Quasimodo come to life as one person. So we come together to create one character, which has just been a crazy but amazing experience.
Well, to your credit and to Ray's credit as well, as you're describing this, it kind of reminds me a little of Jekyll and Hyde. But the only difference is, instead of one person playing the two of you are playing the one, which is just so incredible. And it took, I guess, me a while to figure out, your role. You're off to the side there. But that was just like so cool that you're just this, almost like an alter ego of, is that how you kind of describe it, what you're doing?
So I've sort of been saying it as sort of like, it's Quasimodo's voice, but it's like his inner voice and his sort of conscience that's following him around, and that he's able to communicate with some people in this way. And some people can see the conscience and some people can't, in the sense where like you have Frollo, you have Phoebus, and like most of the characters that aren't able to see me, and we have this beautiful moment where Esmeralda actually does speak. We made the choice that Esmeralda does know how to speak sign language, and in that moment she's actually able to see myself and Ray at the same time, which was this great thing, because when we started working this, we were like, how are we going to make this work? Because there are times when I am like, Quasimodo is responding directly to people, but if it's like a separate entity responding to them, how will these other people know how to respond? And it just worked. Like, it just was like day one, that was already not even an issue. We were like, oh yeah, this works. Great. Cool. Next thing.
And
Well,
as if I can, as an interpreter, that those moments add a little bit of levity to what is generally a very heavy play, and it gives like bright moments that they're beautiful. They translate very well in the visual language of ASL.
And if we give a shout out, guys, to the director Ethan Henry again, that I spoke on Sunday with people who had seen the show elsewhere. They thought the direction of this was just so brilliant, and just that he hit it so well, and it was such a powerful show that it's worth seeing. And let's talk a little bit about that, Ray, if I can, kind of put you on the spot. I'll ask you two questions, but one is for the benefit of people who don't know the story. And again, I knew the movie, but I had never seen the musical. Can you give kind of a real short summary of what the play is about?
Okay. Well, I made a visual more so that I could study with Quasimodo. Sorry, I was just getting some clarification. And so I did a little bit more of a study on Quasimodo and about his life and his story. Sort of kind of resonated with me growing up. He lived in a place that was in the tower, was dark and cold, and he lived in that environment, and so he had to wait to go. He sort of, in that environment, felt normal, I guess. Respect, honesty, and those sorts of emotion. And then finally, when he went into a larger group, he sort of felt it kind of brought him to life. It was like kind of like Esmeralda. Felt there was a connection. And it only took that one person to sort of give him that connection and that feeling of love, and it was really quite beautiful. He was connected with the world, and people could see him. It doesn't matter if he was ugly or deaf or whatever. People didn't see that. It was very impactful. So we were to see what all of the effort that Quasimodo went through, so that part of it, I guess, was very beautiful. And my connection with Anna, I kind of connected with that feeling myself. It's not sort of like, people to feel sorry for me, but I just sort of wanted to, I didn't want it to be a sad ending. So we needed to sort of watch and experience the journey, the love, the hope, and also the disappointment and the heartache along the way.
If I can ask you, Ray, how was it having a hunchback the whole show? Having to wear that hunchback? Did you have to get used to it, having a hunchback?
I would say it wasn't that hard. Without that backpack, it would be hard to, I think with the weight on it, it gave me the ability to kind of just have the right amount of hunchback. I didn't, it was nice to have that little bit of weight on your back, actually. It kind of reminded me that, there was a little bit of a weight on the world that he carried. And, it's sort of a lesson for the audience. That was sort of the most beautiful thing. I wanted to make sure that the people could see the signs, that the voice and everything was connected, and it was good.
How much did that weigh? How heavy was it?
Oh, gee. I think it was only 1 or 2 pounds.
Oh, okay.
It was really more like a pillow.
Because, Rich, I want to give you a big compliment here. But it was so cool watching you, even though you didn't have, like Ray said, the big pillow on your back. I could feel, you were prancing around like you had a hunchback too, which was really cool to watch you. Were you aware of that you were supposed to have a hunchback?
Yeah, so that was actually one of the things that Ethan, our director, talked to us about. Was there was one rehearsal where he sort of had Ray stand the way that he would be standing with his hunch, and then he was like, "All right, Richie, now imitate that, like imitate that stance." And then he asked me, he said, "Richie, now how does Quasimodo walk?" And then he told Ray to imitate the way I was walking, and both sort of came together to create the physicality of Quasimodo, so that we were always matching each other and we were always trying to be on the same level as each other. And even without the hunch, there was still a moments of, you could tell that I was hunched over, and it came, I'm going to give a shout out to my parents because it came naturally to me, because even though I've been performing since I was 8, every single time it was, you got to stand up straight, you got to stand up. And my father had actually said to me, the only role you're ever going to be able to play is the hunchback. Stand up straight. So joke's on him.
Yeah.
I guess.
Have they gotten to see the play?
They're actually coming this week. They're coming on Friday, and I'm very
Okay.
excited for them to
But
see it.
but you have to remember, don't stand up straight though. On Friday, don't stand up straight.
No,
When
yeah, no. This time I actually have to hunch over.
Okay, that's great. Let me ask both Ray and Richie, and maybe Kat and Laura too. Have any of you seen the film versions of the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
I've seen the Disney movie.
No. Ray, have you ever seen it? The movie?
Yes, I have.
Okay. The,
I've also seen the Disney movie about 40 times.
okay. But I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ray, if you
so
saw,
in
if you,
preparation for my character, so.
I don't know if you saw the movie version though, or Richie, with Charles Lawton. But if you ever get a chance, it's brilliant. It's just he's catch the film if you can. Let me talk a little bit just as we wind down here. A couple of things. So for the benefit of people who want to see it, Richie or Ray, it runs what, one more week? Till when?
Yes, it runs one more week. We have performances on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. And then our closing performance is 2 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay, and if people want to get tickets, where do they go?
If you want to get tickets, you should go to sartplays.com and then find season 48, and there will be a shows tab, and there will be a tab specifically for Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Okay, and again, if I can make the strongest possible recommendation, and I told Chelsea this, I'll tell you guys, that I see a lot of stuff at SART. I've seen just about everything, and this was as good as anything I've ever seen there. So kudos to both you and to Ray, also to our two interpreters. Phenomenal job, and just everything about it's perfect. The acting, the directing, the costumes, the music. You name it, you're going to enjoy that show if they see it. Ray, let me ask you, if I can, after the show ends on Sunday, do you have any more acting gigs in your agenda?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I am, after this experience, a little bit more enticed to do it, but I don't want to really leave my teaching job. I really do have a passion for teaching ASL, and so, to be honest, I could still teach and do some performing, perhaps, but I really would like to try something again. And before we finish for the day, I just want to say a few of the comments that I've heard over the last few days, that people are coming, they've seen things in New York, this performance, they're saying this one is better. And Carly, I really can't compare that feeling, because I've never been to anything in New York, any theater there. But one man came up to me and says to, bring this to Broadway. And I was like, wow, this is my first performance. I'm like, this can't even be happening. So that I'm being compared to something like that is really unbelievable. And so I really don't even know how to explain the feeling, but it's really quite inspirational. And perhaps it's really beautiful.
Well, anyway, I can just say, from my standpoint, I certainly do hope we see you again on stage. But I should mention, too, that in addition to being an actor then for the first time, you mentioned you also teach. You also mentioned, I know you told me off the air, you're a photographer as well. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I am a little bit of a photographer for about 16 years. And I've also been training dogs for about 6 years. It's not very big part of my life, but I do that a little bit. Just sort of do it in sort of a local area.
Okay, and you also teach then, too, is that correct?
Yes, I also teach American Sign Language.
Okay, great.
In Bridgetown, or Bridge Community. I've been doing that for about 3 years.
Okay, now let's Richie the same thing too. So after the run of this, in your spare time, I won't say spare time, but what's next for you?
So actually, we are having our first day of rehearsals for Sart's next show, The Wedding Singer. I am directing that show, so I'm taking a step behind the table to sort of realize that one. I've done the show a couple of times, and I've really wanted to tackle this show because I think it is just so fun, so nostalgic. I think it's a perfect, like, I don't know what the word is, but I think it works well with Hunchback and Wedding Singer. I think both are great. I don't know what the word is, but they both come together to make a really cohesive season, and I'm looking forward to getting started. We're in music rehearsals. I've been able to hear the cast sing. They sound great. It's going to be a blast. So that's where I'm at. And then once the season is over, I'm actually going back to Florida. I'm actually getting my teacher certification so I can teach theater to middle school and high school kids at some point. So that is where my next steps are going.
And the question is, do you have a preference? I always ask people, acting or directing?
Right now, it is acting. I've only directed maybe once or twice before this. I really took on this show because Wedding Singer is a show that I feel very passionate about, and I'm very confident in my ability to direct because I feel like I know it very well. So right now, it's definitely acting, but ask me again in 4 weeks, and I might have a different answer.
Okay. It's funny, a lot of directors tell me they prefer directing, and the truth is, Ray, they don't tell this to people, but the truth is you don't have to remember the lines, so that's the one advantage to doing directing, I guess. And I'll ask both Kat and Laura, just tell a little bit about what you folks do. So when you're not involved in the show, what else do you do aside from being involved in the show?
Sure. So I'm primarily a medical interpreter, and that's really where my passion lies. I always wanted to be in the medical field growing up, but I was never good enough at math to be a doctor or a vet or a nurse. So I love getting to be an interpreter. I love getting to be in different places every day, get to meet new people, get to learn just a little bit about all kinds of different careers and people lifestyle every day. I really enjoy being a community interpreter, and yeah, it's a big passion of mine. I'm really excited to have got to be a part of the play, which is something completely different than I've ever done before. But once it's all over, I got to go back to my regular medical interpreting job.
Do you want to do another play in the future?
I would, yeah. I think I've learned a lot from this one that I'm going to be able to take into future interpreting assignments, not even necessarily to do with theater, but just in general. I've learned a lot about negotiating. I've learned a lot about different roles and how to kind of, shift roles and what that looks like to be as a part of a team. I'm really excited about what I've learned, and I can't wait to take it on into the rest of my career.
Okay, that'd be great. Same question, Laura. So when we finish the run of this play, what will you be doing?
I am actually still pre-certified. I am primarily an educational interpreter. So during the school year, I find myself in K through 12 settings generally. I also do some post-secondary work. I actually enjoy post-secondary quite a bit because I am the kind of nerd that always likes to learn, and I like learning while I'm working. And so I also do a lot of community work in the summertime. And that's why I was able to jump at this as soon as I got the request right before the end of the school year. And I was like, oh, goody, I'll have a whole job through the summer or half of my summer. And that's not something that happens for me very frequently, especially doing pretty much one of my dream jobs. So I will not be difficult to entice to come back and do another show. I actually already interpreted Sisters of Swing at SART and Milestones as well, the two previous shows. And I will be interpreting the last show of The Wedding Singer as well. I believe, Richie, correct, that closes on the 30th, the weekend of the 30th. Your sound's not on.
31st at 2 p.m.
And so the last performance of The Wedding Singer will also be interpreted. So as the rehearsals are starting and we're still doing the shows at Hunchback, I'll be popping in for a rehearsal or two and learning another musical to get my hands up in the air for. So it's I'm more than happy and excited to be a part of it.
And Ray, two final questions for you. First of all, after the run of this play, any big plans coming up or anything special coming up?
Not really. I'm just going to keep teaching.
Okay. Let me ask you
That's
this.
about it. You know, I teach everywhere I go. You know, people are really interested in learning sign language, and so I have one important for everyone I have. I said I wish that people would learn a little bit of sign language. It's never too late to learn. So all you have to do is try. If you wait or put it off, you'll never know if you could do it. So you got to give it a try.
Before this show, had you been a theater fan? Had you seen stuff at SART or anywhere else?
No, no. Actually, I sort of avoid TV and movies and whatnot because I like to be busy and out doing things. So I'm more of a jack of all trades, I guess you could call me. I like to do things. I have been to Milestone before, so I could guarantee you that you'll find me at the Wedding Singer on the last day. So if you want to see me, that's where I'll be.
Okay, I was hoping you'd say that. Richie, I'll ask you one last time if you could just give the show dates and the information as to how to get tickets if they want to see the wedding. Well, first of all, you still have 1 week left to get to Hunchback Notre Dame, and then when does Wedding Singer start?
The Wedding Singer starts on Thursday, July 21st is opening night. That first week, it runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with 2 performances on Saturday at 2 p.m. and a 7:30. Thursday and Friday, 7:30. Sunday is 2 p.m. And then the second week, it will be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. That Sunday is the ASL interpreted performance, Sunday, July 31st. And the same way you get tickets for that will be the same way you get tickets for Hunchback. Go to sartplays.com and you'll be able to find the show's link there and you'll be able to buy tickets right there.
Okay, I'd like to thank you all for being my guests on the Blaine's World show today. Again, Ray and Richie especially, phenomenal job, and I encourage people strongly to see it. They're in for a treat. And thanks, Kat, for showing me. I guess I learned that from Lora the other day. So you want to applaud? It's just like this?
Yes, a death clap. Clap.
That's right. That's right.
Ray, last question I'll ask you as a performer. So do you like when you see people clap, do you get a kick out of and seeing them do the death clap, or just if you just regular clap? How do you feel about that?
Well, I obviously do prefer to see the deaf clap because I can't hear the regular clap. You know, in a small theater, you can see everybody's hands when they're doing the deaf clap.
Okay. Well,
You know, so when I see that deaf clap, it really is something beautiful.
okay. Well, thank you for teaching me that. Or Laura, the other day, I saw Laura. I was so excited just watching you. So,
Absolutely.
but you were so enthusiastic to watch you, Laura. So great. Anyway, thanks,
It
guys.
was the first time that I was able to actually sit down and watch the show. That one performance that we didn't have, I was sitting right there, ready to support Ray, if anything, and also watch the show for the first time. And I did cry, so please bring tissues.
Well, I did too. So it did something for me. Anyway,
That's great.
thanks, guys, for being my guest on this special edition or this special Blaine's World show. Hope to all see you soon in the near future. Thanks, folks.
You're very